I want to start with Essendon, of course. Again, it's been another difficult week for Brad Scott. There's been some interesting press conferences from even from the players. But I just want to focus in on a bit of leadership stuff because, Cal, we've got one of the great leaders of modern footy in Joel Selwood, premiership captain and incredibly well respected. Most games as captain in the history of the game. When you heard Zach Merrett, I'll get you first, Cal, Zach Merrett being added to the leadership group, I sort of felt like, well, did you really need to announce it? Why was it so important to get that bit of news out?
I was surprised as well, Jimmy, that the Essendon were absolutely keen to get that out there because it was Kyle Langford that volunteered that earlier in the week, and he's a member of their broader leadership group. But this has been, throughout the summer, clearly a change from Zach Merrett's captaincy over to Andy McGrath and a build from within the younger group. They've bestowed more leadership honours on Sam Durham and Jai Caldwell and Nick Martin, who isn't playing but still playing a role behind the scenes there. So I was surprised that only 2 games in, Joel, that they would do this. Now, we've heard from Brad Scott today saying that this is a realistic part of it. I mean, he was a captain for 3 years off the footy club. Before that, he'd been in and out of the leadership group for many years before that too. He was actually, I think, the second youngest captain of the footy club ever back in 2016. So it's not as if leadership is foreign to him. But I think given everything that's gone on across the pre-season, Joel, I was a little bit surprised. What did you make of it?
Well, probably not as much as you, to be honest, Cal. It's just, from all that we've heard out at Essendon, Zach has behaved in a manner that has told the rest of the club that he's in and he wants this club to go forward, even negotiating his contract of late, getting his manager Nick Geeshan to do that. But probably what is made of it is a little bit more than what needs to be. Zach would have been a part of conversations in trying to take this club forward. That's what he wants. He doesn't want to be down playing these games that aren't worth anything come sort of July onwards. He wants to be a part of the end of the season. So to get these players up and about as early as he can, he needs to be in those meetings regularly, I would believe.
Joel, I just want to play something from the Real Footy podcast, which has Michael Gleeson and Jake Nile. And he's talking about the Bombers and leadership. So take a listen, and then I've got a question off the back of it.
It's more empowerment, and it's leaders. And you rely on your leaders to get you, and Essendon, I spoke to Brad Scott, pre-season last year or start of the year, and I put the question to him, is this a bigger problem of talent or leadership? And he didn't hesitate. Leadership. And that's before the Merrett fiasco fully unfolded.
I'm not sure the talent's fully
I'm not
there
sure
either.
that, yeah. Well, the two things are kind of tied. If you have Joel Selwood, if you have Patrick Dangerfield, if you have Scott Pendlebury in your club, if you have 2 or 3 individuals like that, they don't even have to be the best players, but they can change the locker room.
So, Joel, as all the cool kids say these days, your name was dropped in that little riffing from Jake Nile. The notion of one person in particular, because when we hear of or we see of clubs who are down near the bottom of the ladder, it's let's go get this player in and do the Luke Hodge experiment, up in Brisbane or North Melbourne. Let's go target Luke Parker. And, when you were coming to the end of your career, there would have been a number of clubs going, let's go get Joel Selwood in. When you hear that, of course, your record speaks for itself as a leader. Can one player actually have that sort of impact?
They can have a huge impact, one player, but they can't have an impact when it comes to performance come game day. I'm looking at that Essendon side last week. They had 7 of the youngest 9 players on the ground. They had 7 of the oldest 9 players on the ground also. The gap in between was huge. So you're talking about that 7 of the oldest 9 players not playing to the potential or the high standards that we need to right now. And you're having guys that are coming through at the same time that don't know exactly where the game's at and trying to learn. They're trying to work out whether on Thursday night they're in the side or not. So I just think that the balance is all out at the moment. I think that I don't put it down to an effort thing. I heard Brad Scott speak about it early in the week. It's none of that. It's just a little bit of confusion where they just need to simplify everything. And they can't come out and try and play like other sides. They can't come out and try and play like Hawthorn or Geelong or Adelaide tonight. They haven't got the assets that those sides have got. They need to play a different game style, and I reckon that it's just off at the moment.
So you're starting to go to where my next question is. If you were called in there, because you've ran leadership programs not only for AFL clubs, but NRL and all sorts of places. Look, you can't fix it all in six days. what would be the first recommendation? So they go, Joel, come in, sit in front of us, whether it be the players or the coaching group. What would be the first thing you'd say or do?
That we're going to simplify things. What do we want to stand for? How are we going to make this game easier for each other? How are we going to challenge each other out on the ground and help each other out? I think it just got to a period on the weekend. They played over in Adelaide, the Essendon Footy Club, and it was probably they were probably trying to work too hard at the early parts of the game. Then it fell apart, and then they looked within and they said, what can I do about it? And it just all got lost. It all got muddled. So just clearing the waters a little bit.
Jimmy, I'm interested in your view about the specifics on what the target should be for Essendon this Saturday night against North Melbourne. How would you, from a coaching point of view, if you're Brad Scott, simplify things? We heard James Hird talk about this week on Footy Classified, setting a few benchmarks to be able to absolutely hit. Brad Scott spoke to the media again today, and he didn't back away from how strong he was over the weekend in terms of how those comments and the demoralising nature of moments throughout that game. He supported Nate Caddy, who is his most prized asset. You speak, Joel, of assets. He's one of the guys that does have that capacity to turn a game. But, Jimmy, on Saturday night, it's going to be a nervous stadium at Marvel because both fan bases, both teams are hunting that win. I know North won a couple of weeks ago, but it was one step forward, one step back over the weekend as well. So what would you nail it down to?
Yeah, a good way to transfer the nervous energy is putting the pressure back on the opposition. So clearly, for me, if I was going to set clear statistical things that you can measure on the side on at quarter time and half time and so on, is let's restrict marks, because 107 uncontested marks more for Port Adelaide. So that means, and it breaks it down. So the simple things off that, the marks is the number and how we're going to do that. So when we don't have ball and you can't contribute, cut out the release and everything. So what we're going to do is at least force North Melbourne to kick it to a contest, and then we can hang our hat on the contest. So it's cut out marks, contested possession, we're going to win that, and that's what we're going to have a look at. And then you could add tackles because that gets you around it. So at least that's stripping back the game.
Joel, Brad Scott speaks a lot about capability and potential and the capability off his list versus the potential of what it can be down the track. But this is the second youngest list in the competition. What are the actual expectations for Essendon this year? Realistically, are we seeing that much different over the first fortnight of the year than what people actually viewed from what Essendon's progress would be? And you speak about the gap between sort of that bottom end of the list in terms of youth and top end in terms of age. Well, they've got those lost years of recruiting that are costing them out on the field at the moment.
Well, they are, but let's put in potential too. They come up against a good side in round one in Hawthorn, and probably got shown where they're at for a period of time, can stay in the game for 45 minutes, but then when things don't go their way, they can get blown out of the water pretty easy. So learning to just fight in the arm wrestle, that's the challenge for them, breaking it down to simply 15-minute gaps. And then second game that they played, absolute mulligan. Everything went wrong. So quarter to quarter, literally just break it down, and as simple as that sounds, let's just get after the next 30 minutes.